Last night, I started my homily with an apology because I didn't have a funny little story to tell that would kind of ease us into the Scriptures, but God provides. Last night, just as the homily was coming to an end, a small child screamed out and began to cry. And I felt so sorry for the young mother. She had 4 small children with her, and she was trying to manage all 4 of them. Well, the youngest really couldn't take it any longer. So when the child screamed and cried out, I looked up and I said, that is not an uncommon response to the length of my homilies. And everybody just roared with laughter. It is true, Betty. Not always in here. The adults usually wait until they get out into the narthex. These readings for this weekend are so incredibly rich. So prepare yourselves. You know what's about to happen. From the book of Wisdom. The author of Wisdom is giving us that age-old truth. God is the God of the living. God does not create death. And I think maybe the author of Wisdom has been listening to my funeral homilies, because I have said on so very, very many occasions that death is the door that we walk through, that we might enter into the remainder of our eternal life. And that is essentially what the author of the book of Wisdom is saying today in this passage. And yes, we, like all of the created order, will have to wither and die. It's just part of what happens. But the reality is that with our baptism, we are eternal. And death is our way home to our eternal place. It is for us a change, but it is by no means the end of who we are and who we are called to be. When we get into Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, it helps to put this passage into its context. And Paul is writing the second letter to the Corinthians. In this portion of the letter, he's inviting them and encouraging his community in Corinth to participate in the annual collection that is taken up and sent back to Jerusalem to support the Christian community there. So Paul does an absolutely incredible thing working with the notion of generosity. Jesus, who was divinely and humanly generous, has made himself poor so that all of us might be rich. Rich in faith, hope, and love. And because we too are now one with his divine body through the sacrament of baptism, we too are divinely and humanly generous. And we are called upon on occasion to give so completely of ourselves that we give to others the very same love and hope and faith that has been given to us. And nowhere does that become more obvious to me than in matrimony. Couples who truly do work so well together and work so long together that they do become one person, giving so completely of their love and their hope and their faith that they become one and are able to give as one all that Jesus Christ has given to them. That's generosity. Is a generosity that knows no equal. It is God's very own generosity working through that couple to become the gift he gives to all the earth. In the gospel passage from St. Mark, What an incredible couple of stories. So beautifully woven together that we might miss a lot of what's happening. Jesus comes back from the other side. He's been in pagan territory, and he comes back across the Sea of Galilee to come home to the Jewish land. And waiting there on the shore, of course, of the lake is all this crowd, and among them is Jairus, the official from the synagogue. He's been waiting there anxiously. He's perhaps filled with confusion. He knows that if he asks Jesus to come to his house and to lay hands on his daughter, that she's not going to die, that she will get well. His hope is so tangible and so real that it becomes surety. His faith is so deep that he has absolutely no doubts that if Jesus comes, Jesus can heal his daughter. So the minute he gets near Jesus, please, please come with me. And Jesus does not hesitate. Let's go. He's ready. Can you imagine the frustration of Jairus as this unnamed woman comes out of the crowd? She's elbowed her way through all those people so that she can get up close enough to Jesus simply to touch his clothing. And Mark tells us that she is thinking and saying to herself, if I but touch his cloak, I will be healed. A faith that is so absolutely sure. A hope that gives place to the absolute reality. A love for Jesus that she doesn't even want to touch his body. Just his clothes will do. And sure enough, when Jesus feels that healing power go out from himself to her, he is detained. He's got to take care of this woman first so that he can continue his walk to the home of Jairus. I believe that Mark placed the story of this unnamed woman in the middle of this passage about Jairus and his daughter, so that Jairus himself would have some sign, some image of what Jesus can and will do. For both of them, their faith, for Jairus and for the unnamed woman, their faith is so absolutely secure and firm in all that Jesus can do. And both of them have hoped so completely that they are absolutely convinced that this hope is going to give way to surety. Can you imagine how much more anxious Jairus becomes, standing there, listening and watching as Jesus deals with this unnamed woman, a woman? She's been hemorrhaging for 12 years. She is unclean. She cannot go to synagogue or to temple to pray. She cannot get married. She cannot have children. She is, in fact, a symbol of everything wrong in the Old Testament and in Jesus' time. She cannot be who she has been created to be. Her very, very last chance and hope is to simply reach out and touch Jesus' cloak. And Jairus is standing off on the side, wondering, my daughter is dying. Come. He's given her a place. He's given her value and honor. She is daughter. Has healed you. Can you imagine what she must have felt at that moment? She's been given back her health. She's been given life. And Jairus has just witnessed what happens when death meets God. So the next scene in this story are the servants coming from the home of Jairus to say, don't bother, she's dead. It's not going to do any good. Jesus pays no attention. He gets to the home, and in true Jewish fashion, the funeral has already begun. That's all of that crying and weeping and wailing. He puts all of that aside. Talitha koum. Little girl, get up. And she's alive. She's alive. And I love that next line. Give her something to eat. Her big brother, Jesus, is concerned about her physical well-being. She was dead. Now she lives. She'll need all of the things that all of us need to live. Give her something to eat. I think Mother Church is inviting us today to look into the depth of our faith. Do we believe that Jesus truly can do all that he has said he can do? Are we asking in our prayer and believing so firmly that our hope becomes surety? Are we willing to allow God to encounter the death in us so that that death sprouts and blooms and flowers and is life? We're entering into the hottest days of the year. Those days when we want to shut ourselves inside, sit in front of the air conditioning vent, and have something cool to drink. But should we allow all of that to stop us from exercising our own divine and human generosity to give life as God gives life, to reach out to one another, and particularly to those who are marginalized, to share with them our faith, our hope, our love. Paul encouraged the Corinthians to that same divine generosity that had given them life and life eternal. He encourages us to the very same generosity.